Hi, my name is Giselle, and I want to tell you my amazing life story. Press like and subscribe to the channel, and then get ready to listen. My parents were very strict. They didn't let me dress fashionably or wear makeup, let alone go to parties and have fun. And of course, that affected my school life. Oh look, our nun is here. Giselle! Knee-length skirts are too revealing. You should wear full ones or your mommy and daddy'll get angry. Ugh. Susan never missed an opportunity to mock me. She was lucky to have normal parents, so she dressed like a model and always went to the coolest parties. Hey guys, I have some great news. Everyone immediately surrounded Sean, and of course, after all, he was the most handsome boy in school. He was popular and rich, and rumor had it that his parents had died, so he was being raised by his grandmother. She owned a large company and doted on her grandson. It's gonna be my birthday soon, and I'm throwing a pool party. It's gonna be wild. Wow, they even had a swimming pool. That's so cool. I had no chances of getting invited, though. Take these invitations. The security guards will only let in people who have them. Wow, a private party? Will any stars be there? While everyone was taking the invitations, I was sitting at my desk. I didn't want to try and take one only to be turned away. That would have been too humiliating. So I just decided to pretend that I wasn't interested. Giselle, why don't you take an invitation? Here you go. I'm inviting the whole class. Thank you. I didn't even expect. Sean put an invitation on my desk. I couldn't believe it! It was the first time I was being invited somewhere. Now I could go to Sean Lovely's house. Just you wait, Nun. Your parents aren't gonna let you go anywhere. Yeah, we'll see about that, Susan. At home, I decided to try my luck and talk to my parents at dinner. Mom, Dad, my classmate invited me to his birthday party. Would you mind if I went? What are you talking about, Giselle? There are only temptations and debauchery at such gatherings. But all my classmates are gonna be there. I was even given an invitation. Let me take a look at it, sweetie. I took the invitation out of my pocket and handed it to my dad. I instantly regretted it. He tore the invitation into small pieces right in front of my eyes. Forget about parties. Our daughter is going to be a good girl. Good. I was shocked by what my dad did. Tears streamed down my face, and I got up from the table without permission for the first time in my life. Come back this instant. I won't! You're ruining my life! I ran out of the house, slamming the door on my way out, and I wandered aimlessly through the streets. I was seething! It wasn't fair! And for some reason, I ended up in a rich neighborhood. Namely, I ended up at Sean's house. I saw his grandmother, Mrs. Lovely, and she was arguing with some woman. I felt uncomfortable and I hid behind a tree so they wouldn't notice me. Go away and don't come back! You aren't getting any money! The woman muttered something and then walked away. She was probably just a persistent beggar. I had seen Sean's grandmother several times when she was picking him up from school, and I couldn't imagine that sweet old lady hurting someone on purpose. Wow, though. Through the fence, I saw workers erecting a stage, setting up tables, and decorating everything in the courtyard of the house. Sean's birthday looked like it was gonna be amazing. I had come to prove to everyone that I had the right to have fun too. When I got home, I didn't talk to my parents, and I just went to my room. I spent most of the night trying to think of a solution, so I was late for gym the next morning. All the girls in the class had already changed, and I was all alone in the locker room. While I was putting on my uniform, I noticed that Susan's locker door was ajar. I was gonna slam it shut, but then I saw Sean's invitation to the party sticking out of the bag. Of course, I never would have done it if the circumstances were different, but I really wanted to show that upstart. So I took her invitation, hid it, and went to gym class like nothing had happened. No one seemed to notice anything. The classes ended, and I went home and realized I had nothing to wear to Sean's cool party. I had no money to buy any clothes, but I found a solution. I cut some of my clothes, hemmed them, and totally didn't expect the results to look cool. It seemed like I would make a good couturier. And then Mom called me. I hid the outfit and went down to the living room. Honey, do you want to watch the TV with us? No, Mom. We had a lot of classes today. I did my homework and I now want to go to bed early.
Good decision. Good night, Giselle.
They didn't know what decision I'd actually made yet. Back in my room, I locked the door from the inside, stuffed some pillows under a blanket, just in case, and climbed out the window. Of course, climbing down was terrifying, but I was determined to get to the party. There were guards at the entrance, and Susan was causing a scene.
Miss, we were told not to let anyone in without an invitation.
Are you kidding me? I had an invitation, but someone stole it. Let me in immediately.
I'm sorry, miss, but we have no right to do that.
Susan looked so angry that it made me laugh, and I didn't miss the opportunity to tease her. You should have kept a better eye on your things. Maybe you wouldn't have lost it then. Susan turned red with anger. I gave the guards my invitation and was led into the party that I had been dreaming about for so long.
What? Is this beauty really our nun, Giselle?
You look amazing. I didn't think you would be so cool. My classmates almost fell over when they saw my new look, and it felt great. There were a bunch of treats, a famous stand-up artist performing, and a swimming pool there. However, I wasn't used to loud music, so I soon got a headache and had to look for a quieter place to breathe. There were a lot of people in the house too, so I went to the backyard. I saw something weird there. Sean was standing next to the beggar who'd recently been scolded by his grandmother.
Here, take this. It's some food from the party and money.
How cute. It turned out that Sean was a really kind guy who helped the poor. But then, something strange happened. The woman hugged him and gently stroked his cheek. They lived in different worlds. What was that? The woman left, and before I could hide, Sean noticed me. He came up to me, looking lost.
Giselle, please, don't tell anyone what you saw here.
Of course, I won't say anything, but I don't think there's anything wrong with what you did.
You see, that woman is my mother.
Wow, I was shocked. Sean said that his mother hadn't died. It was just his grandma hated her daughter and forbid her from communicating with her grandson.
As you can see, Mom isn't doing very well. She has no money. If our classmates found out about it, they would mock me.
Are you sure? After all, we don't choose our parents. But Sean was adamant. He even offered me a deal. He would turn me into a cool girl in exchange for my silence. It was so tempting. I had been dreaming of being a normal teenager for so long. So I agreed. The next day, Sean and I went shopping, and he bought me a bunch of fashionable clothes. After that, he brought me to a salon, and I got a fashionable haircut. My life changed. I became popular at school. I could never have even dreamt of that before. However, my parents didn't understand that, and we kept arguing.
Where were you, Giselle?
We told you to come home right after school, but you're late again. I didn't say anything and just went to my room. What I saw there horrified me. The things that Sean had bought me were cut into pieces, and broken makeup products were thrown all over the floor. I ran out of my room and confronted my parents. Why did you destroy my things? My parents didn't say a thing. They only smirked. Ugh, that was it. Things couldn't go on this way. I'm sick of this. Why won't you let me live a normal life?
We don't need a daughter that disgraces our family.
Oh, was that right? I left the house, slamming the door on my way out. I swore I would never set foot in there again. I had nowhere to go, and I ended up going to Sean's house. I called him, and soon he came out in the yard.
Giselle, did something happen?
I fought with my parents. Could I stay here for the night?
My grandma wouldn't understand. We have to think of something. Oh, I've got it!
Sean remembered that Mrs. Lovely was looking for a new maid and suggested that I work for them until I make up with my parents.
Grandma, this is Giselle. She would like to work with us.
What a nice young lady. I was given a room and a uniform, and that was how my life in Mrs. Lovely's mansion began. They even promised to pay me for my work. Sean promised that no one at school would find out about this. My popularity and new look really pissed Susan off. Where'd you get those clothes, Giselle? Did our nun rob a bank?
Quit picking on her. She's actually cool. Yeah, and she's also not rude to everyone. Unlike you, you're insufferable.
It seemed like our princess had become an outcast. Take that, Susan. I loved my new life. However, one evening, I walked into Mrs. Lovely's office and saw Sean there. He was standing near an open safe, taking out bundles of money and putting them in a bag. Sean, what are you doing? That's your grandmother's money.
Please, be quiet, Giselle. I'll explain everything. My mom is seriously ill and she doesn't have health insurance. She needs the money to pay for surgery.
But stealing isn't the answer. You could just ask Mrs. Lovely for money. Your mom is her daughter. Surely your grandma would help.
There's a lot you don't know.
Sean said that Mrs. Lovely really hated his mom. When she was young, she'd run away with a poor guy, even though his grandma had forbidden it. Then, when Sean was born, his father had dumped his mom and moved to another country, taking everything of value with him. Sean's mother had to ask Mrs. Lovely for help, but she couldn't forgive her daughter's betrayal, so she took her grandson from her daughter and kicked her out.
That's why I have no other choice.
I assumed Sean knew what he was doing and didn't tell anyone. However, I later regretted it. Mrs. Lovely called me to her office and said,
"A large sum of money has disappeared from my safe. Admit it. Did you steal it?"
No, Mrs. Lovely. Sean will tell you the truth. I haven't stolen anything. Grandma stared at her grandson, but Sean stayed silent.
I knew it. You liar. Get out of my house. Thieves don't belong here. Be grateful I didn't call the police.
There was nothing I could do but go back home. My parents were furious, but eventually calmed down and accepted me back. However, living with them was hard. They threw out all my new clothes and became even stricter. I didn't know how to explain to my friends at school that I'd become a nun again. Of course, Susan was triumphant.
Giselle, are mommy and daddy keeping you on a short leash again?
I tried to talk to Sean, but he just ignored me. It all made me despair. Being at home and at school was unbearable. I was slowly walking down the street after school when I suddenly saw Sean's mom. She was getting out of an expensive car and didn't look ill at all. Besides, she was wearing fashionable clothes. It seemed suspicious, and I decided to watch her for a while. I followed her into an expensive makeup store, and I pretended to be looking at stuff. Sean's mom was talking on the phone, and I heard her say something that immediately made me start filming.
Things are finally looking up. It really wasn't all that hard.
My naive son just missed his mom so much. He's ready to do anything I ask him to.
Just imagine, I even got him to rob my mom's safe. I said I needed the money for surgery, and he bought it.
So Sean's mom was just using him? I had to tell him everything. I ran to his house and I witnessed another scandal. Sean ran out of the house with a backpack, followed by Mrs. Lovely.
Sean, wait! I don't want to hear it! I hate you! I'm going to live with my mom and we'll do fine without your money!
Sean ran away, and I went up to Mrs. Lovely. She looked crushed.
What do you want, thief?
Mrs. Lovely, please, hear me out. I told Sean's grandmother everything I'd found out, and I showed her the video I'd recorded at the store. Just imagine, she started crying. It turned out that Mrs. Lovely hadn't taken Sean away from his mom. Her daughter had left Sean with her since she couldn't have fun with a son to take care of. But she always came back when she was broke and started demanding money and threatening to take away the child. But Mrs. Lovely had chased her away. We decided to find Sean, so we got into Mrs. Lovely's car and drove into a poor neighborhood. Sean's grandmother didn't remember exactly where her daughter lived, but thankfully she didn't need to. We saw my classmate at the first intersection. He looked miserable.
Mom said she didn't want me. Did you set this up?
Your grandmother didn't do anything, and I showed him the video. Sean finally realized that his mom didn't want him if he didn't have Mrs. Lovely's money.
Grandma, I was a fool. I'm so sorry.
It seems you owe someone else an apology, young man. Sean's grandmother looked sternly at him, but then smiled. She turned out to be quite sweet. Sean turned to me.
Giselle, I'm sorry about the safe.
We got into the car. Mrs. Lovely offered me a ride home. I was worried because classes had ended a long time ago, and I was definitely going to be in trouble.
Giselle, where have you been? Explain yourself. You're completely out of control. We should have been stricter with you.
Was that even possible? I trudged into the house, but
good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Efron.
I wanted to personally thank you for raising such an honest and selfless daughter. My parents were stunned by such politeness, and even invited Sean and his grandmother in for tea. Mrs. Lovely told them that she'd also forbidden her daughter from doing a lot of things when she was young, and nothing good came of it. And imagine, Mom and Dad actually relented. They finally allowed me to dress differently, wear makeup, and, most importantly, spend time with my friends. I started working as a maid in Mrs. Lovely's mansion again, so now I could buy new clothes and cosmetics for myself. However, some people still wouldn't leave me alone.
Hey, Giselle, did you find your purse at a flea market?
It's been out of fashion for 2 seasons already. Or did you not have the money for something better? I was about to say something when Sean suddenly intervened.
Leave her alone. Giselle might not go to parties or dress fancy, but she's still a wonderful person. You, however, are terrible no matter how much money you have.
He's right. Stop bullying everyone already. I wasn't expecting that, but Susan's classmates actually boycotted her. I kind of felt sorry for her because I knew perfectly well what it was like to be an outcast. So I sat down next to her in chemistry. I knew it wasn't her best subject. Hello, do you mind?
What do you want?
This question is really complicated. Let's work together. Susan was silent for a while, but then nodded. Do you think we'll ever get along? Tell me your opinion in the comments down below.
You are so cruel, Kiara. You know what? One day something bad is going to happen to you, and no one will help you because the truth is, you're awful.
Hi, my name is Kiara from Louisiana. Please like and subscribe. Mom passed away when I was born, so my multi-billionaire dad raised me alone. And he spoiled me with money. Everyone fawned over me, but I knew it was just because I was a billionaire's daughter. One girl, Rita, the girl you saw earlier, was especially annoying in her attempts to please me. She will follow me everywhere.
Oh, you spilled juice on your sneakers.
It's waterproof.
Oh, sorry.
People would say she was super nice, but I thought she was too fake and itched to be rid of her. So when I invited her to my 17th birthday party and was about to cut the cake, I stepped up to her and pulled off her wig.
Look, guys! Rita's hair is actually 2 inches long!
All the kids in the neighborhood were there, including her crush, Derek. Her face went red, and she uttered those words of doom to me. She stopped visiting and talking to me after that, but that was a score for me. While I pretended to be the happiest outside, at home, I was lonely. Dad wasn't always around, and I didn't want to socialize with the maids, so I kept busy on social media. One afternoon, I read a viral tweet about a bank robbery that happened that day in Louisiana. The robbers were being sought by the police. I barely had time to think about it because my bedroom door burst open just then.
Hey, honey.
Dad! It had been over 2 weeks since my dad left for one of his business trips. He never told me what he did there, only that it was top secret, and he couldn't take me with him.
I just came to see your face. I'm going back right now.
Is it safe? I heard some robbers.
Sorry, my princess. I'll contact you.
I noticed then that Dad looked really tense. What's going on, Dad?
You're surrounded. Open this door right now.
Suddenly, the reflection of flashing sirens filled my room. I rushed to the window and looked out to see police cars parked in our driveway and many armed policemen heading to the door. I turned around to tell Dad what I saw, but he was racing out of the room. It was like a bad movie. The police caught my dad before he could escape and arrested him for years of cyber fraud and the recent bank robbery. All of our servants ran away. I was shocked to my bones. I couldn't believe Dad was a criminal. I stayed up all night in the house alone and in tears, wishing for the first time that I had a friend, even if it was just a weirdo like Rita. Oh, I missed her now. How was I going to face people? It was all over the news what my dad had been doing all along. To make things worse, the next day, 2 men from a security agency came and told me that they would be confiscating all of Dad's possessions, including my car and our house. Where will I live?
You will be leaving with me.
I stared at the middle-aged woman who I hadn't noticed before behind the men. And you are?
I'm your mom's older sister from Texas, Mary.
Texas? The state of cowboys and farm animals? Ew! I broke out into a run. I refused to live with an aunt who I had never seen before. She looked so poor.
Hey, come back here.
I ran at breakneck speed until I got to Rita's house. Rita! Please, open up!
What are you doing here?
Rita! Please forgive me. Please tell your parents to adopt me.
My parents can't harbor the daughter of a criminal. Sorry to disappoint.
I probably deserved what she said to me, but there was no way I was going back to the house with that woman waiting to take me to Texas of all places. I wandered aimlessly for an hour until I found myself at the park. Tired, I sat on the bench and soon dozed off. My mistake, because when I opened my eyes again, I found myself in a small, dingy bedroom. Where am I? The woman who called herself my aunt appeared at the doorway.
You're finally awake. Welcome to Texas.
What? I was at the park in Louisiana last time I remembered. She told me they had searched for me and found me asleep on a bench there. Because of her work, She had to return to Texas today, so with the help of those security agents, I was bundled into her car, and to their surprise, I remained asleep all the way there.
Take me back right now!
Kiara, you should be grateful for this opportunity to change scenery.
She was right. If Rita could act that way towards me, what would the rest of the kids in the neighborhood do? Everyone would be making fun of me. Can I get something to eat?
Sure.
Soon, she served me a tray of food that I couldn't make out what it was. What is this?
White bean soup.
This is a meal for peasants!
Half bread is better than none.
Left with no choice, I ate the meal, but vowed to order something more befitting in the morning. But in the morning, when I tried to order breakfast from a nearby breakfast delivery, I found out that the credit card Dad gave me had been blocked. How could I live in poverty? For days, I stayed holed up in my tiny room. Aunt Mary would go back to work and come back to find me in the same position. Sometimes I rejected her peasant food.
Your food has gone cold.
The food is beneath me.
If it's so bad, why don't you find work to do so you can earn money to afford your favorite meals?
I wasn't born to work. I knew I gave her a really tough time, but I was so mad at how my world had turned upside down, I couldn't see anything else. Until one stormy night.
Ah! I hate storms! Aunt Mary!
I came across her sleeping on the floor in the living room. Hey, why are you on the floor? Go to your bedroom.
You're sleeping in it.
That's your bedroom. You left it for me? I hadn't bothered to explore the house, so I had no idea it was the only bedroom here. But why would she do that? She had nothing to gain from me. You're sleeping on the floor here for me to sleep on the bed? Why did you bring me here when you're not even comfortable?
You're my precious niece. Would you prefer I left you to be taken to a foster home?
Tears filled my eyes. All along I had been a brat to her when she had actually done me a favor by showing up. I doubted I would have survived in a foster home. I vowed to be a better niece to Aunt Mary from then on and help her out. So the next day, I went with her to meet Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the couple she worked for in their mansion, and apply for a part-time job. Ma'am, sir, I would also love to work here part-time.
Great. We are in need of another hand in the kitchen.
Thank God it was not the farm. The wages they proposed to pay was nothing like what my dad gave me on a weekly basis, but at least I was earning it legally. On my first day of work, I dressed in one of the few designer clothes Aunt Mary had packed for me. As I made my way to the mansion, I passed a plainly dressed girl who had her back to me and was shoveling mud from an empty ranch into a wheelbarrow like a pro. The next second, I felt something wet and sticky land on my back. Mud! It was mud on my Dior shirt! Are you blind? Do you know how much this shirt cost? She turned around to face me, and I almost lost my footing. She was so beautiful. Bright green eyes, dark hair with bangs, a leanly built figure, and even though she was quite tall, I could tell she and I would be around the same age.
Sorry, princess. I don't have eyes at the back of my head.
But when she spoke, my awestruck state shattered and I regained my temper. Oh, you dare to insult me after what you did?
Hey, stop barking. Who wears a Dior shirt to work anyway?
She even had the gulls to look amused. You witch! I rushed toward the ranch to grab some mud and throw it right back at her top. But when I looked in her eyes again, I just couldn't do it. Thank your stars, I can't bear to touch mud.
Ooh, scary.
Ah! She was infuriating! After my event with the silly girl, I cleaned the kitchen and went on to do my last task for the day, serve the Smiths dinner. On getting to the dining room, I froze when I saw who sat at the dining table with Mr. and Mrs. Smith. The mud girl! She had cleaned up all the dirt and wore fresh clothes, but there was no mistaking her. She gave me a huge smirk when our eyes met.
Oh, Kiara, have you met our daughter Mia? Come closer and say hi. Don't be shy.
Yes, Kiara, come say hi.
Hi, Mia. Panicking inwardly, I quickly set the table and served their food, afraid she was going to spill everything about how I had spoken to her and get me fired. But all she did was bore holes into the side of my head with her piercing green eyes until I left. Gosh, did she not know it was rude to stare? Later, when I came to clean up the dining table, Mrs. Smith sat alone with a smile on her face to announce that Mia had chosen me to be her help.
That's not a problem, right?
No, ma'am. Inside, I boiled with anger. The spoiled brat wanted me to be her personal maid so she could torture me.
Good. So go upstairs and let her tell you what she expects of you.
I climbed the stairs to her room like it was haunted. Hello? Her room was much bigger and well decorated than mine back at the mansion. Why was a girl of her class shoveling mud? Is this some kind of joke? Turning me into your personal slave?
Correction, assistant.
That's just... She stood up from the chair she was sitting on, and I felt the words dry in my throat as she leaned over me.
Call it anything you want. I intend to double your pay in 2 weeks if you are good. But if this cranky attitude is what I have to put up with, then please leave.
Of course I couldn't leave, and from the triumphant smirk on her pretty face, she knew this too. What do you want me to do for you? And can you give me some space?
Does being this close bother you?
Why should I? You just smell a lot like dirty mud. It was a lie, but I wasn't going to let her win.
Your task is to do whatever I ask of you. First, you'll stand there and sing until I fall asleep. Only then can you leave.
Could this get any crazier? Seeing as I had no choice, I began to sing a song that could hopefully give her nightmares. Soon, I was hearing soft snores, and when I snuck a peek at her, she was sound asleep, looking like an angel. A beautiful angel of evil. Later, I couldn't sleep when I thought of all the humiliating things she would tell me to do. What if she treated me the way I had treated Rita? It came to me then that I had been very wrong with what I had done to Rita. If I could be scared of being treated the same way, it means I had dished Rita a meal I couldn't take. And her words then, it really looked like it had come to pass now. After a moment, I typed an apology to Rita. The other one didn't count. I had just been desperate to escape my aunt. Now I felt truly sorry and sincerely hoped she forgave me. I prepared for work the next day with my stomach in knots.
Kiara, don't be so scared. Mia is a very good girl. She treats every servant with respect.
Well, maybe every servant but me. Our front door was pushed open, and there, dazzling in the morning sun, was Mia.
Howdy, Kiara. You're late. Morning, Miss Mary.
And so my life as Mia's personal maid began. Odd thing was, she hardly gave me anything serious to do. She cleaned up after herself and made her bed, and would instead assign odd and sometimes very embarrassing tasks. It looked like she hired me just for her entertainment.
Pick out my underwear for tomorrow. Brush my hair while I read.
Once, she even asked me to do something that made me blush to the tips of my ears. Feed you?
Yes.
I am sure you have hands.
They are scabbed over from shoveling manure today. I forgot to wear gloves.
Why do you even work on the farm when you have servants at your disposal?
I get paid.
Won't your parents give you money even if you don't work?
They will, but I am happier to work for it than receive handouts. At least when I share it with the less privileged, it doesn't feel like I'm throwing away money that isn't mine in the first place.
Wait, you work, get paid, then share it with the less privileged?
What? It's called giving to charity.
Wow. Despite the fact she was utterly annoying, my respect for her climbed very high that evening. She was a much better person than I had been when I was in her position. She even treated the maids like they were friends. I managed to feed her a few spoons when I noticed that our faces were really close. It was as if she was going to kiss me. I need to go.
Kiara!
I did my best to avoid Mia after that day. I needed to sort out all the confusing feelings she was making me feel. Thankfully, she didn't bother me either. I focused on helping Aunt Mary out on the farm. One day, I was throwing feed into the fish pond when I heard a growl behind me. It was a bull, of monstrous size, pawing the ground. It looked like it was about to charge at me.
Help! Kiara!
Out of nowhere, Mia appeared with a red cloth and began to wave it at the bull, distracting it from me.
Back off, boy.
Soon, other servants rushed in and helped to rein the bull. My heart was still beating when Mia approached me.
Kiara, are you okay?
Something about the gentle way she spoke to me and the concern in her eyes pulled me in like a magnet. And before I could register what I was doing, I pressed my lips to hers.
Is this thanks for saving your life?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know when
Are you saying you regret it? 'Cause I don't.
You don't?
I liked you from the very first day you yelled at me. So, is this why you took an unpermitted leave from me? I was getting too hot for you to handle?
I have never felt this way before. You really like me? In response, she pressed her lips to mine again, and I took that as a yes. Aunt Mary came rushing toward us then with a phone in hand. I don't know if she had seen us kiss or even knew I had almost been attacked by a bull, but she looked really anxious.
Kiara, there's someone on the line for you.
Who?
Your mom.